at that time, there was a real advantage to having both degrees in terms of academic opportunities. And how I got there, let me deviate again. At that time in Illinois, to practice medicine, and pathologists had to have a medical license, you had to take a rotating internship. Now rotating internships are virtually non-existent, and there were few academic hospitals that had rotating internships. These were when straight medicine, straight surgery, straight OB/GYN, straight pediatrics, those were beginning to be the thing to do. Anyway, I ended up at the University of Michigan, which still had a rotating internship, with emphasis in pathology, which meant I spent 2 months of pathology and then the rest rotating around through the various areas. Pathology at that time at Michigan, most of the research involved case studies, that is, reporting on the findings of the tissues, what tissue samples told you, what chemistry told you, and so forth. But that wasn't my idea of research, so that pretty much convinced me that I didn't want to do only pathology. At the time I finished the internship, though, I received a notice from the draft board telling me that since I had been deferred as a medical student, that deferment was now over, and I could either apply for a commission or be inducted as a private and practice medicine as a private in the service. And that wasn't a very attractive possibility, so I applied for a commission in the Air Force, but the Air Force at that time had some research installations. So I tried to find out if I couldn't get an appointment at one of the research places. Well, I had a medical specialty number. I think it was 9786 or something like that, but it had an X after it, which meant research. But whatever the 9,000 number was, that was just a general medical officer. So I ended up at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. For 4 days I was assistant chief of OB/GYN until some other doctor came to the base and wanted to be an obstetrician. So I became a doctor in the dependence clinic. So I spent the 2 years in Texas being a doctor. And I had some interesting cases. Maybe we can come back to some of them. But this convinced me that I really didn't want to have medical practice. So I applied to the Public Health Service for a postdoctoral fellowship and was awarded one. So I got back to the University of Chicago in January of 57 and talked to the dean of students who had come into office during our sophomore year, so I had known him before, and he encouraged me to, while I had on my fellowship, during which I got pathology training also, that I might want to consider applying for tuition credit and work for a Ph.D. degree at the same time, and since I would be doing research anyway, and it might be a wise thing to do. So that's what we did. And Then I did receive pathology training, enough that I was board certified in anatomic pathology. And I did receive the Ph.D. in pathology, doing immunology research. At that time, immunology at the University of Chicago was not a separately identified discipline. There was immunology research in the Department of Microbiology, and there was immunological research in the Department of Pathology. And people talked to one another and they interacted, but there wasn't a definitive program in immunology. So that's how I got it. The federal support helped in terms of paying the graduate tuition, in addition to the postdoctoral stipend, and I was able to accomplish both the PhD degree and the pathology training in about 4 years.